Please welcome to Streaming for Vengeance, Mr. Marc Storace, Krokus's Marc Storace. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tim. It's nice being here, BraveWords, and all the heavy metal kids and girls out there.
Well, it's been a long 2 years.
Oh yes, oh my God. But luckily, I got busy. It was the only way to go. Get busy, get creative, and I'm happy I did that because the results turned out just like I wanted them. I didn't know what was gonna come out, but what came out, I'm really happy with.
But you're right. It was like for 2 years there was an option where you would just like mentally just go into some kind of zone if you weren't busy. So it was good for your head, and it's good as a rocker to actually write a new solo record.
Exactly, and I enjoyed it a lot. It's been a long time coming. I've had a lot of material which was never exposed, and you know, but then I opened my little drawer and looked through files and the archive on my hard disk and stuff, and went back about 25 years. And I mean, Live and Let Live, the title song, is 20 years old. I wrote that with Charlie Preissel. He's a very good guitar player, lives just down the road here from me. And yeah, then came the Krokus reunion, the big one, and that took me away from any, it took up my time, and because, you know, you need to have a long run of, say, a year and a half where you're just free, your head is free for the creativity, and also so you have enough time to look back at a song, say a month at least, and then they pile up. You know, I had a nice collection, about 30 songs to choose from in the end, and also the co-songwriters, they piled up.
Right.
There's this Adrian Fisher, a guitar player from Newcastle, and we never met in person, but through the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And Cyril and Massimo, the other two songwriters, who I met whilst doing this TV production in Gran Canaria in 2019, okay. Before the end of Krokus, that was.
Right. So talk about your band and working with them. Is there anyone like in person that you've had in your situation? And tell me, were you able to actually record? Did you have a setup that you were able to actually do the studio stuff without having to go anywhere?
Well, working on the songs, it was all mostly via internet, computer, and sending things to and fro, and me working at home. I love working here on lyrics and vocal melodies. I got the peace and quiet. I can, you know, take breaks, come back, you know, and not take up anybody's time, and do it in my time. And
right.
And the rest of the stuff is what you have to do is when you have a certain amount of songs and ideas, is get together and jam out some demos, you know. And but nowadays it doesn't need to be a whole band. It's okay if I worked with, for my case, I worked with Massimo, and he's the drummer, and Cyril, he's a guitar player, co-writers. And they also have this studio, Power Play Studio. It's world known, and that's outside Zurich. And we did the first demos there.
Okay.
And I had other demos I had done with my neighbor here, guitar player Charlie.
Right.
And the other stuff I did via internet, they were actually finished in in England, in Newcastle by Adrian. So there was not really this band thing going on during the songwriting, but then as soon as we decided on the songs, the Cyril and Massimo knew the right people to fit with this kind of music. And I hired these studio musicians and got things done in various sessions over a long period of time. And, excuse me, each session went real fast, you know, and they're very flexible and talented and experienced, and speed was important, you know. Keep the studio sessions short,
right,
and have a lot of time in between to have objectivity and come up with new stuff, you know. So it was nice. It was a nice process, and ended up with us going into the studio as a band when we were ready and knew that we were going to record these 10, 11 songs. And it was very congested, and it happened so fast. And what we did, actually, you know, I wanted this to be an analog thing, you know, like an old school recording, like the way we recorded in the 80s with Krokus, and even in Europe earlier than that. And it's we used the Neve desk, we used an 18-track Studer, a Swiss Studer tape machine, and everything went in the end through Pro Tools, because that's the best thing for mixing and for jumping tracks and all that, all the detailed stuff which comes in the end. And after that, everything went to Los Angeles, and the whole thing was mixed. And when we were happy with that, everything went to Nashville, you know, so there's still the American connection happening there. And I was happy with the results, and you know, I'm thankful for the way that Massi and Cyril produced the whole thing. It was really in their hands, the whole scheduling, musicians, and everything. And we're all happy with it. And I'm humbly pleased to have so many nice compliments internationally from various journalists that I've done interviews with. And the bottom line for me is that I'm happy that I didn't let anybody down. I don't want to leave my fans down or anything, doing something weird, you know.
No, it's far from weird, but I must say there's a lot of bands that are churning out material that they've created in the last couple of years, and they're very angry, they're upset. And this album is far from a very negative, you know what I mean? It's just a great rock and roll. Like, look at the title, Live and Let Live. Like, it's a very positive record.
Yeah, definitely. It fits for any situation, from genocide to racism to LGBT or whatever. Mm-hmm. In the old days, a GT was a fast car. Yeah. So anyway, there's so many things, and it's really difficult, you know. So people like to put their noses in other people's business loads of times for selfish gain. So anyway, greed.
Yes, greed.
There's something about everything on the album, and there's also the last track, Paradise, is like the one where you're like, okay, now we've talked about this, we've had the politics, we've had the broken hearts and broken dreams and stories and politics, and so now it's time to relax, let your hair down, go to the beach under the moonlight with a big fire there and have a big party. And that's how it ends, you know.
You're such a romantic. I love it.
Yeah, I am. I'm quite romantic. That's the Libran in me, I guess.
Well, you guys have never been afraid to write a love song.
Oh no, never. Sorry. Stuffy nose. Yeah, a love song. No, I mean, I think any lead singer or most lead singers like to sing a good ballad, you know, sing your heart out, keep those long notes, you know. And my favorite is still Screaming in the Night. And that's because although it's a ballad, it's still got the rock, you know, those chunky guitars going while I'm holding long notes. And every half a minute, there's something new happening in that song. There's no repetitions, you know. You might think there are, but if you listen to the details, you see that it's a moving river of quicksilver of ideas coming, and they keep coming till the very end. Yeah, it's an amazing piece of work.
You miss life when you don't focus on the little details, right?
Well, yeah, little things make bigger things.
Right. Well, I must say your voice has aged gracefully. You're looking great, but your voice has aged gracefully. What are the magic secrets to the fountain of youth? Is it the Swiss water?
No,
Whiskey?
not particularly. No, I guess it's just the amount of knowing when to be strict with yourself and when to let your hair down, you know, which means I live healthy and I enjoy my glass of wine, my glass of grappa, you know, grappa, it's like the end result after they make the wine. And I like to sing often, you know, so like throughout my whole career, I've not only done stuff with the main band, with like in the 70s, it was T, a progressive rock, hard rock band. And then the main band was Krokus. And in between and parallel, I always like to do other things because they take you away from your main thing. So you become objective. Then you're looking from the distance at at the mothership, you know. You leave the mothership, you go on a little rocket, take a little ride, and you can see the mothership in its own perspective and come back. And through that, obviously, I kept singing and singing and singing and keeping my vocal cords in shape, you know. I guess that's very important.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because there's a lot of bands, and it doesn't matter the genre, that actually are stuck in their little box and like forever, right? So I love that analogy of you taking the little rockets. Kind of had like Star Trek in my mind. They're going to a planet, but you can still see the ship.
Yeah, the mothership is out there waiting,
right?
And you're waiting for the signal to go and dock in and start rehearsals again, you know. But in the meantime, you're exploring. You're exploring whatever, you know, new planets and new galaxies and new dimensions, meeting new people, and they all bring something new and good. And I mean, there's a lot of bad that comes as well, but it's good, you know. Then you learn how to use the shield, you know, the shield and the sword, you know, which is it's part of life, you know.
Now, Switzerland is very similar to Canada, not in like massive space, but in terms of population. And there's this own little, like, we have unique music industries. And there's a lot of bands that people never hear of that are from Switzerland. A lot of bands that are, unless they can latch on to a major, I'm going way back to like a major label and get proper distribution. But my point is this record has been out for 3 months, way ahead of everyone else around the world. But that's pretty commonplace in Switzerland and in Canada if you're homegrown.
Yeah, well, especially if you don't have a big record company behind you like we did in the 80s, who distributes with no problem. They have all the connections. I have a great partner, you know, he's the drummer of T from the old days, so I know him a long time, and he manages me today since the Krokus To Rock or Not to Be album, actually. So we've established a good working relationship where we don't put too much pressure on each other and do what has to be done, keep moving forward. And, you know, so it was important for me to have somebody to do the other side of the business. I'm like doing the creative stuff, and he's got all the ropes and is doing the rest, you know. And we have our friend, our very old friend, actually, who was Rolly's neighbor in Switzerland, and he's living in Denver, Colorado. And this is Peter Valti, and he's also been involved with Krokus since way back, you know, since before the To Rock or Not to Be album was recorded. And, you know, he's doing the other side of the stuff, you know, the state side. Like we couldn't release in North America until he did this connection for us, but we went in a hurry, you know, and we went in a hurry, especially to put everything on Spotify. You know, we're old school guys, and most of our fans are old school. They want to have the CD or the vinyl piece in hand, you know.
Absolutely.
They want to look at the pictures and read some lyrics, and it's a different kind of game, different kind of story, different world we live in, you know. A lot of people download one song from an album and that's it, and they know nothing about it, maybe what's behind it. They don't even know what the artist's name is, you know,
or what even they look like,
or what they look like. Yeah. Whereas for us, you know, we used to hang up a new album cover and it was almost frame it, you know, and it was like decorated your room, you know, in the older days, which I kind of miss that kind of stuff.
I totally miss that kind of stuff. Well, I am confused because is Krokus officially retired, or this must be frustrating when you have to put a halt on a goodbye tour or a pause on a goodbye tour.
Yeah.
Like, my God.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
Because you didn't even get here. You didn't get to Canada.
No North America. We didn't do England. We didn't do Mexico. Nothing. We just had to stop, you know, because everybody had to stop. The whole showbiz industry was going down the drain. You know, look how many businesses went kaput. You know, they just went bankrupt. And also, if you look around the cities, there were restaurants and bars and whatnot, you know, closing down, people going out of business and stuff. It's a tragedy, you know. It's apart from the dead people we had to bury, you know, all the losses, you know. I mean, our neighbor Italy was really going through a big mess for a while. It was like you thought of the Middle Ages and Black Death and stuff like that. So damn horrible, you know. But luckily, we're on the way out, hopefully, and let's keep hoping things are going to get better and better, and we can tour. And right as we speak, there's a tour being organized for me and my band, for Storace, and in North America, you know. So I'm really looking forward to coming over for the fall, sometime, I don't know, in autumn, and doing that tour. It's like a dream come true. It will be if it happens, and I don't see why it shouldn't.
Well, Ozzy always said about Black Sabbath, never say never. So I'm presuming that's what's going on with Krokus. Never say never. It's still.
Yeah. Well, Krokus is a difficult thing, you know. I had high hopes, but they started to disintegrate and fade away, you know. So I really don't know what's happening there.
How does that feel when you've had something so close to your heart for many, many years? Like it's like a little child, and then poof, that's history.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were on the way to close the shop anyway.
Right.
We had already done so in Europe. You know, the last gig we played was in the Swiss rock temple, the Hallenstadion, which was packed to the brim and such a great atmosphere, everyone having fun, you know, until the end, you know, towards the end. And then came out the hankies and the Kleenex, and, you know, people were wiping tears, and so were we, you know.
Well, it's sad.
You know, it's not a nice thing, but as was said in all the media, you know, we wanted to stop at a point where the band was winning respect, and, you know, we had done Wacken, we had done all these big festivals in Europe in 2019, and it was actually a good point to close shop. And I understand that whole thinking process, although I wasn't happy with it. And so I kept hoping, but recently, you know, I decided not to keep hoping in vain, and just concentrate on my thing, which makes me happy, and look out for number one. And number one is always yourself.
Right.
First, you know, it's because other things, so many things in life can mess you up. So look at number one, and if things have to happen, they happen, you know. But otherwise, I don't know what's going on anymore.
That's a fair answer. That's a fair answer. Do you have time for a few more questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I know I sent Peter my questions ahead of time, and you probably laughed at one of them, because we, being from Canada, and to get to a European festival, I'm talking late 90s, early 2000s, when we went to Wacken for the first time, I was like, holy shit, what the hell is going on here? This is like a 3-day, 4-day festival. At the time in 2000, and there wasn't 100,000 people, but there's probably 30 or 40,000 people. And we would go, if we went like for about 15 years straight, and because we were traveling so long, we would add like another week, and it was usually a beach. And one year I said, we need to go to Malta. I'm not lying to you, because we need to stalk you. We need to find you. You weren't living there, but we had a wonderful time in Malta. And, but really, how does a kid from Malta end up fronting one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time? Like,
well, I mean, it's easy if you're eaten up by a virus, and that's the rock and roll virus. at the age of 14, you know, that's when I first joined my band down there, and I carried on, and I reached a point when I left school and had to decide what to do with my life, and you know, I just wanted to give it a try, because I reached a point where it was like, it's now or never. So I just said, I'm going to go and try and join the professional world of show business, find the right band, find musicians who are like-minded, and get on the road, write songs, make demos, record albums, go on tour, and make a living out of living this life, you know. And it was hard at first, you know, as a Maltese guy, you know, we're bilingual, Maltese and English, and we were part of the Commonwealth as well, like Canadians and Australians.
Right.
And so going to London was the easier step because of the English language and knowing so many English people. And, you know, my first love was an English girl living in Malta. Her dad was in the RAF. And so anyway, I grew up with so much music, and I managed to make some connections in London, but then I met this Swiss girl who had better connections in Switzerland, and I thought it's time for a break and get away from the rain and cold, rainy, cold London. And I ended up in Switzerland thinking, if it doesn't work here, I can only just get on a train and carry on down to Malta, you know. But I loved the place, and I met these musicians, and soon I joined T, and it just kept on going, you know, like from one year to the next. And 7 years later, we had Krokus on the final T tour as opening act, and that's how I got to know the Krokus guys before I returned to London. You know.
Wow.
It's quite a kind of rock and roll gypsy story.
It's an incredible story. But just I just want to back up just real fast. Just one simple question: what was that first voice that you heard as a kid that made you want to go, I want to do that. I want to sing like that guy?
I think it was Little Richard, actually.
Okay.
And you see, with the tail on the end. Lucy, I listened to loads of soul music, parallel to everything else that I was doing, you know. So Chuck Berry, I loved the songs, but not really as a singer. He's not really a kind of lead singer type of guy. But then came Elvis, and I picked up that "It's Now," you know. And obviously then the Beatles, for me, opened a new door, and I was listening to them, got into their music a lot. And then came another 50 bands on that same bandwagon with all the pop. And then came the first rock bands, you know, and Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin. And there was a band called Free, you know, which was not so heavy, but great with the blues feel. And it just carried on and on and on, you know. And so I became aware around the days that we started writing songs with T, that's when I started working on my own voice, you know, instead of copying, because I had covered so many bands and so many singers and tried to imitate, and I learned so many different techniques, you know, even up to the Bee Gees, you know, not the Saturday Night
Right.
Bee Gees, but earlier on, like the preacher taught me and he smiled, you know, with the tremolo and fast moving tremolos and stuff. And then the high screaming notes, which Ian Gillan used to do, you know, and the falset in Child in Time. Stuff like that, and taking it all the way. I told Ian personally, I told him, you know how much you influenced me. and even Roger Daltrey of The Who in a different way. And then with Robert Plant, I think that's where I stuck for a longer while. Robert Plant, I think, influenced me the most, you know. And I mean, the way he could go up there like a little boy and then come down and do a nice slow blues and stuff like that. So and the whole very from slow to fast and amazing.
How are you hearing music back then? Like, was it from the radio, a family member?
Well, it started off with this radio. We only had 2 channels on it in Malta, which was like a rediffusion, they called it. And one was the Maltese channel, and one was the English channel. And there you got BFBS and BBC. And then there was Radio Caroline, which was a pirate ship out off the British coast.
Okay.
So I had this radio with an antenna, and I used to try and, you know, the reception was very bad, not just for me, for all of us in Europe trying to get Radio Caroline, and lots of musicians talk about this. And we used to listen to that until it got sunk. It was scuttled because it was illegal. I guess they didn't have permits and stuff, and there were some guys from the BBC working on that as DJs and stuff. That was a whole trip for itself. And then my older brother bought a record player, so then I started buying records, vinyl, and listening to radio. And later on, I went off to London, had this record player, and that's when I got into, I heard Yes for the first time, this album, Fragile. And I got into progressive music. I didn't know what hit me. It wasn't like the rest of the hard rock, and it wasn't only like pop. So it was a mixture, and, you know, and the intricity and the craftsmanship of the musicians was so incredible. And so I kind of, for a while, left Zeppelin and Deep Purple and The Who and that stuff behind, and moved on to this new fashion prog rock. And when I came to Switzerland and joined T, it helped a lot, you know.
I'm sure it did.
By then I had listened to mainly Genesis with Peter Gabriel, you know, Carpet Crawlers and all that stuff, and all the intricate musicianships, so different arrangements that, I mean, it's night and day compared to Krokus, you know. And then, yeah, I went back to London after tea and started Easy Money going, and only one song reached the public through a compilation album called Metal for Mothers Volume 2, and the song was Telephone Man, and that's an incredible song, and I'm actually covering it now with my band, because what I'm doing live here for Switzerland is, well, I've got my 10 songs, but that's not enough for a whole gig. So I decided to fill the rest of the concert with gems from the past, which and created this little bit of history thing, you know. And when I do Krokus, I only do like Midnight Maniac, which has hardly ever been played in Europe, and Hellraiser, because I wrote that on my own during the time when I was the only guy in Krokus. And To the Top, which is another song which Krokus hardly ever played, and I never get tired of singing that one. And then from the Blue album is the mysterious Blue album, was supposed to be my first solo album, but then took on the name Blue.
Right.
And there's a song which was a radio hit here called You Can't Stop the Rainfall, which is also pretty romantic, you know. I'm telling her you can't stop the rainfall, so put on your makeup. We're going out to have some fun tonight, you know. So stop the ball in, you know. And other couple of other things, like I'm doing one song from T called Crystal Rivers. I started with Breakdown, but that's too kind of complicated and too long, takes up too much time. So I'm putting in Crystal Rivers now, which is like a bit of a psychedelic song, but it's still got that good riff, you know. So it fits in with the stuff that I'm doing. So it's a nice, entertaining evening, I think. You know, it's 1.5 hours of good fun music.
I wish I could join you.
Yeah. Well, maybe in fall.
Maybe in the fall. Maybe in the fall. I've got a couple more questions for you, because being from Canada and hearing the cover of American Woman, and even, and don't take this the wrong way, when I'm a huge BTO fan, and Not Fragile is one of the greatest albums that ever came out of this country. So when on Headhunter you covered Stayed Awake All Night, I'm like, where are these guys hearing these Canadian songs? Maybe it's a Commonwealth thing.
Well, we all knew the Guess Who and
Sure.
Bachman Turner Overdrive, and Fernando actually came up. He picked the songs which he thought were suitable musically for Krokus, and vocally they made sense for me as well. I mean, Stayed Awake All Night is fun, a real fun song. And when we recorded that on the Headhunter album, it was nothing but laughs, you know, and I was drinking beer and taking it easy for that one, whereas usually I'm pretty strict and would only have a glass of white wine there, because that's like an upper, like coffee, and good for the voice, fresh.
Right.
And beer is not usually the right drink for me to drink when I'm singing, and red wine neither, you know. So anyway, for Stay Awake All Night, I thought, oh hell, this is a party song, gonna have some fun, and then I dropped the bottle. And you hear it on the recording, and they said, that's perfect. No, we're going to leave it in there, you know, bling, 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 bling.
That is hilarious that wasn't set up. Oh my God. How was it working? Because Headhunter, I have to show you this because the Canadian copy, love it to death. And it was always tradition to just play it once and record it on a cassette.
Definitely, yeah. Nowadays, you can have a record player, buy a vinyl, and make a USB stick to stick in your car, because there's no CD players in cars anymore, in new cars.
But in the early 80s, this was my little stick. So Headhunter's on one side and the Blitz is on the other.
Wow. Well, I've got,
and I still have it.
I've got cassettes as well, and I'm afraid to play them because they disintegrate into dust.
Just put them in a safe. Put them in a safe. Who has the Headhunter skull? Does anyone have what was used to photograph?
I don't know. I think we presented that to somebody, and I don't know if it was someone in the record company or Tom Allen, the producer. I don't know, but that's interesting. Yeah, at first I was pretty shocked to see that, but then, yeah, it goes, because a Headhunter, you know, reminded me of there's like this tribe that they shrink heads, you know, so, and that looks really weird, and then like something out of the jungle. And then there's the business headhunting, which was going on, you know, in those days, it was a new word for us.
Right.
Yeah, like they've headhunted the CEO of that company for this company and stuff like that. So, yeah, and it had little to do with beheading people, actually.
Well, let's continue with the Canadian connection, because you brought it. Midnight Maniac has got to be one of the catchiest, most well-crafted hard rock songs ever written. Now, I love Headhunter to death, but at Midnight Maniac, when you guys came up with the Blitz, you also worked at the famous Little Mountain Studios with the late Bruce Fairbairn, right? Which is really the records that came out of that studio. And I've known Mike Fraser for a few years, and we spoke when the AC/DC record came out. So there's so much history. But tell us a story about going to Canada, working in the Bryan Adams whole world and everything, and coming up with the follow-up, because Headhunter is a pretty vicious record, and this was not as vicious, obviously.
No. Well, you know, we were under strict orders and wearing straitjackets. It was during the Headhunter tour, actually, that this whole thing started happening. We were on tour with Def Leppard, having the time of our lives, selling. We hadn't sold so many albums ever. Our album Headhunter was the highest we've ever been in the US Billboard charts. And then come our booker, the record company, and our manager, and we called a meeting in one of the dressing rooms somewhere close to New York, I guess it was, and they said they would like us for the next record to go a little bit more commercial. Take an example from Def Leppard, you know, they sell more records to girls, and because girls buy more records. If you stop being so
angry,
so dirty and angry, and you know, we were influenced by the Road Warriors, you know, like that movie with Tina Turner and I can't remember his name, but anyway, the Road Warrior movie. So this came like a shock to us, and Chris just couldn't accept that. So there was immediately a kind of a fight going on, you know, and later on he exposed some band secrets, which caused us hundreds of thousands in lawyers' fees, and then went on to expose other band secrets with lots of photos of groupies and stuff in the Swiss press, you know. So people who lived in Switzerland at the time, there was this big revolution happening within the band, and you know. So Chris was fired, and it was up to Fernando and me, and we wanted to carry on, you know. And these guys are putting a big budget under our noses, so it's like putting their money where their mouth is situation,
right? And
offering us choice of producer and choice of this and that and the other, and we were going to do videos and stuff. so it was sounded quite good. And so Fernando and I looked at each other and said, well, it's up to us, So we started listening to various bands which didn't have such sharp teeth. Like one of them was Loverboy, already that name, And but there was some stuff there, and which we thought, well, it's well produced, So it was Bruce Fairbairn behind it, and that was the first connection. And then the thought of recording in Canada and Vancouver, in the rainy city. Always have an umbrella in your hand. No, and anyway, and then there was Bob Rock as engineer and Michael Fraser as second engineer, and these guys both became mega, after that. And Bruce was great, nice gentleman. And we had started doing karate during the Headhunter writing sessions already. So we carried on during the Blitz writing sessions before we went to Canada. And we found out that Bruce Fairbairn was also into karate. So we took further lessons there. We practiced and stuff, and we were all in good shape. And then he introduced us to Bryan Adams and Valance, Jimmy Valance, his partner. We wrote Boys Night Out and a couple of other numbers, I guess, which didn't make it to the album. But one of them was picked by Loverboy. Friday Night. I wrote the chorus for that. Friday night, just got paid, no sleep till Monday, Friday night. So there's lots of memories, good memories there, and that's how we got to Canada, and and we picked. What else? We had already done American Woman, so there was already a connection there, and we were all going through Canada, playing from Toronto all the way to Vancouver each year, going through, and sometimes it was so cold.
Like it is right now. It's painfully cold. But I have to remark, and it's funny, it's Jakey Lee's birthday, and he told me in a conversation a couple of years ago, when The Ultimate Sin came out and Ozzy brought Metallica, who had just released Master of Puppets, on the road with them. And Jake said that Sharon told them, you do not dress like the punters in the audience. So that's where Ozzy got all glammed up after Bark at the Moon. And I'm looking at the whole Blitz thing where you guys started to get a little bit glammed up as well. But I found Sharon's story was like, because Metallica would just come out and beat the shit out of the audience with battery and all, and they just have their jeans and t-shirts. And then, you know what I mean? And Sharon said, no, you're not going out looking like Metallica.
Well, yeah, we were aware that they just wore street clothes, and compared to our designer outfits, which cost us like thousands in comparison, because the guys, the tailors we went to had names, and everyone was going to them, so they pushed the price up, and we went and worked with them, like the soccers we wear, and the budgets were big in those days. It was amazing. There were so big budgets around, and tour support and all that, And well, yeah, it was like, yeah, we're gonna change the music direction, then let's change the look as well, and other bands had done it, and we decided, well, why not us? It was like, there's nothing that says we can't do that, But I guess it was all too much and too fast, from the Headhunter to the Blitz. There's a big jump. and another jump to from the Blitz to Change of Address, you know. And but you find this in most bands. I mean, even the very big ones, where they release albums which go out of context from what they expected to turn up with, you know.
I'm just having a wonderful conversation. My last question has to be, well, it really became hard to find a Krokus record after these records, right? And
yeah,
and I find it really embarrassing because I have a short list of bands that I have never seen live, and it's really, really short. And you're one of them, because I was really too young when you came to Maple Leaf Gardens with Def Leppard. And I guess after that fact, you must have only been here just a handful of times, right? It's been a long time.
it's been a long time, yeah. And that's the reason why you couldn't find our albums after we released Heart Attack. We kind of, well, we split up. I left the band. I was burnt out. I had been in Krokus like from 79 till 88 nonstop, and taking time off meant going to Malta for a month, you know, and that was it. And the rest of the time I was in London and in Switzerland and on tour, you know, through the USA, North America and Europe. So after a while, you start to feel that, you know, physically. And then came the mental stuff, you know. It's like the intrigue within the band circle, you know, band management, record company. So I thought it's time for me now to take a hiatus, and we all ended up back home in Europe. And so the next albums that were released, we didn't have big record companies behind us to distribute that worldwide. And, you know, like a record deal with Phonak in Switzerland for To Rock or Not to Be. And it went gold here. We sold out some gigs. And after that, it was like, there was a kind of a lull in the hard rock scene, which had started way back from 1988 already with well, grunge, really.
Sure.
I don't want to blame grunge or anything. Grunge was like Metallica, you know, down to earth, just with jeans, t-shirts, you know.
Still had a riff.
Teenage Spirit, no deodorant, you know, I mean, no, nothing flash. And we were flash in the, except for Heart Attack, we decided to go rock again, you know, the leather jackets and, you know, torn t-shirts and stuff like that. And yeah.
Last question, because yesterday was Valentine's Day, and anytime this song comes on the radio, we've already kind of briefly touched upon it, the Streaming in the Night. My wife is just like singing. It's one of her favorite songs, and it's like Krokus's Stairway to Heaven. So tell me about like how it has aged over time and how it was written, and just can you kind of just dig a little deeper into how wonderful that song still is? Because when you listen to the heavy metal channels on Sirius XM, that song is played like every day. Like it is really one of the most famous songs from the 80s, and it's a beautiful song. It just and your voice carries us to places.
Thanks. Well, it's we were doing the pre-production writing songs for the Headhunter album, and before that we'd toured. We had the One Vice at a Time tour. And the Headhunter album, we wanted to go a little bit more metal So we chose Tom Allen of Judas Priest, because we had already established a good relationship with Judas Priest as well, having done a couple of tours with them giving us the red carpet, you know, treating us really well and stuff. And so we went, our manager was based in Arkansas, you know, Mountain Home, Arkansas, close to Clinton's home and the White River.
Right.
You know, so, and there was this guy, Bob Ketchum, an engineer, guitar player, who had this studio which where we could record our demos, you know, our ideas. And to jam, we had this big, like, tin roofed warehouse, which got really hot. It was the mid of summer. And we had these big fans, propeller fans, but they didn't help much. They only stopped more heat coming in, I guess. But, you know, we were in shorts and that was it. And we were young and dangerous and careless, and didn't care about what we looked like, if we were sweating too much in there or whatever. We just were jamming out ideas, you know. And then Mark Kohler, at a quiet moment, you know, you hear this, and you know, I was like, where's that coming? That sounds so nice. And I played that again. Mark and Jeff went to the drums. Not Jeff, sorry, Steve Pace. We've had so many musicians in Krokus, I get confused. Sorry, Steve. Steve, such a great drummer. So he went down, and Fernando, you don't get the ideas straight away, but more or less, you know, then you keep working on them. And I'm going, wow, this is going to be a great ballad. I've got to be careful now. Don't want to waste this shot, you know. So I went out on this rock with pen and paper and you know, a cold drink, and sat on this hot rock and listened to them, you know, trying to form this idea and to write kind of the skeleton of words, which where I could go in there and sing some kind of a melody, you know. And then it's like a game of ping pong, you know. One idea turns on the other and the next, and then you kind of stop and say, where are we going to go from here? And, you know, and if you listen carefully, you see that Screaming in the Night is kind of an unrepetitive song. If you go deep, you hear, you know, the vocals. Okay, there's the refrain, the chorus, which almost needs to be repetitive. You know, it's what people remember first. You know, screaming in the night, fighting for my life, I'd die for you. And there's this chugging, and I thought, wow, this is commercial but not cheesy, you know, because that's it. You're always on a fine line of when you're writing a ballad. You don't want to fall into the cheesy on that side of the wall. Sure. You know, you want to stay in the middle, and it kept chugging along, and then I had these parts where where, you know, the riff gets chunky, the guitars, you know, down, wow, chak, chak, down, 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 do, down, down, do, do, chak, chak, ba, ba, boom, da, da, ba, ba. It's so rhythmic, and it's like driving on, you know, and I think that's the secret of Screaming in the Night. It goes in the heart, yet it's not no softy song, you know, and it takes a bit of, you know, power to sing it and, you know, do all the swallow dives and everything vocally, but I still love doing it today, and it's gonna be on my set list when I come back to North America for sure. I'll even put it in before.
What a great way to wrap that up. Thank you so much. I almost got a little tear here because it's so, you know what I mean? It's such a moving song, and to hear the roots of it, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Greetings to your wife, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, she'll love this.
Tell her she has a good taste. Well, ooh. I got to be careful what I say. No, but it's one of my favorites, my personal favorites too.